people start to judge you and start to think, well, if this is how they are with me during the sales process, this is how they will treat me as a customer. When there's opportunities, those people that drop everything and seize them are the ones that come home with the prize.
If there's one characteristic, you could only concentrate on that one, this is kind of the most important thing for a good salesman. Hello viewers, and welcome to a special edition of The Huddle. Tim Poole here, and I'm with Andrew Cochrane, CCO of SoftwareBet. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tim.
Congratulations on the role. In terms of joining SoftwareBet, walk us through the process, and did you end up choosing SoftwareBet over any other offers?
First of all, it's an organisation that I've admired from afar, Tim. There's some groundbreaking innovations in the online industry coming out of this organisation over the last few years. So I've always been aware of them. Particularly impressed with the performance of their online brands, and moreover the caliber of the leadership team that's been built there over the last few years. So listen, when the opportunity came to me to bring my expertise to that leadership team, coupled with the exciting plans for the future, it was an easy decision for me to make.
We're going to talk about a few industry topics throughout this discussion. I'm going to talk about SoftwareBet as well, and maybe your plans and goals moving forward. But when it comes to selling itself, so as a CCO, sales and tier one deals, you've got 3 children. In terms of managing a work-life balance and traveling around the world and working in this quite dynamic industry, what advice might you have, and how do you go about doing something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's always a challenge, isn't it? Balancing personal life, children, and work. In particular, the iGaming industry, the time that I've been in it has been a time of intense international travel, which is pretty normal for B2B sales teams. I suppose it's about planning, preparation, right? Trying to forward plan. But I think this goes back a step further. Okay, so this goes back right to the fundamentals of sales. So it's understanding where do you want to do business? What markets are you targeting? What solutions do you have? And what's the right customer profile for it? So you start at the top, right? And then you start to fall down into understanding where your targets are, where you need to be, where do you need salespeople to be, where do you need people on the ground, people focused, and then you build out repeatable sales processes that target the right type of deals, ultimately to drive sustainable, profitable customers to your business, right? So it's a process that follows through like that, and I think if you do it right and you do it in a planned way, you can start to forward think your year. You can start to understand the trade shows, the conferences that you need to be at. You can plan your travel in advance. Of course, there's always ad hoc travel, right? There's last minute sales pitches and trips abroad, and it happens, and you have to manage that with your family life. So yeah, listen, I think the tip of the day is to try and give as much notice, with your family when you have travels, and not to drop things on last minute. But listen, it happens, and I think when there's opportunities, those people, those businesses that drop everything and seize them are more often than not the ones that come home with the prize.
Another balance to manage, so to speak, as a CCO, as a team leader who also has to manage kind of other salespeople in your team. And this is something that isn't unique to gambling or B2B. It's kind of any sales job in any industry. How do you go about achieving that balance?
Listen, I think it's 2 things, right? First and foremost, it's understanding the right type of people that is going to be in your sales team, okay? And we go back to fundamentals, okay? I am a firm believer that sales is a very individual trade. I think everyone does it uniquely, and I think that's okay, and I think that's what makes the best salespeople very unique. If I think of the top 3 salespeople I know, they're all very different people and sell in a very different way, but that doesn't make any of them any different in terms of their performance. Mm-hmm. They're all top performers in their field. So from my perspective, I look for fundamentals first. Okay, so we look for professionalism, or we look for understanding of how to sell SaaS solutions, right? This is a consultative sale. Okay, you're not selling something off the shelf, so to speak, right? So you need to have people that understand that discovery process with the customer and understanding requirements. But also some very simple fundamentals like being super responsive when someone reaches out to you, and being on top of that very quickly is very important, because people start to judge you in the sales process and start to think, well, if this is how they are with me during the sales process, this is how they will treat me as a customer, right? So it's really, really important that those first kind of interactions with a prospect, they really get across, a hyper responsive, really professional and slick organization, and moreover, product experts. They know the technology, they know what they're selling, and most importantly, they can demonstrate credibility with a proven track record of driving operators' performance, right? And I think if you get that, the salespeople manage themselves. I think, for me, it makes my life easier. They know what's expected. I always set a pretty high bar because ultimately I want to, achieve great things every year upon year. And I think if you get the right people in, as long as they meet those fundamentals, I like to empower them to go about and hit their own targets in the way that they want to do it.
Taking your point about every salesperson being different and that being completely fine. If there's one characteristic though that you could, because you mentioned a few, but if there's one that you could say, if you could only concentrate on that one, this is the most important thing for a good salesman.
Closing, number one. The biggest skill that's absent in a lot of the industry, right?
Yeah.
But listen, it can work a number of ways, right? And I've worked in sales teams where the closing ends up, on my desk, or and that's fine. And I absolutely love being involved in deals, particularly the larger, more complex ones, particularly government sector opportunities. Absolutely love being a part of it. But I think those sales individuals that have the ability to get a contract over the line, to get through a difficult commercial negotiation, they set themselves apart, and they're the ones that are essentially worth their weight in gold.
I'm not going to ask you how to close effectively, because that'll be different for every kind of deal. But you mentioned you enjoy kind of the high profile tier one deals, and actually at ICE, just in daily conversations, I've spoken to people and they've said we'd love to hear what it's like for people who deal with tier one sales, and they mentioned a few people, and actually they kind of name checked you as well as someone with a track record of that. Walk us through the process of kind of a big tier one sale, and I know you've got some case studies from your past as well.
Well, look, first of all, a big tier one deal is in some ways no different to it shouldn't be any different to any other sale through the business. You shouldn't be treating one organization differently to another organization, right? As I said, if you go back to those fundamentals of responsiveness, of professionalism, of being product experts and understanding, what you're selling, and moreover, understanding the operator's requirements, then it shouldn't matter through that process. But I think tier one or large deals often require something special. So I think it's about really showing the potential customer that you understand their specific requirements. I go back to kind of listening more than talking, right? The opposite of today for me, right? So it's about really saying, okay, what are your pain points? Why are you here? Why are you talking to us? And what is the most important thing for you in this process? And if you listen and you understand that, and you go away and you come back to them with a very, very clear solution that meets their specific requirements, then really, from my perspective, you're selling your solutions first. You're not talking about price. You're actually talking about how your solution can meet their specific needs. And I think if you do that, larger organizations, that's how they prefer it, because ultimately they want to select the right product or the right partner to ultimately meet their objectives. And I think if you can demonstrate that, then you move into a very strong position in the process, right? There's always external factors, right? You can win RFPs and still not be selected because of a variety of corporate reasons, right? So you just have to stay very focused, persistent, right? So and also making sure that you've got the right resources around you, because ultimately to win larger contracts in this game, you can't do it yourself. I can't do it myself. I can't ever say that I've personally won anything, because it's down to the support of my team. It's down to the support of product, technology, delivery organizations, right across the organization that come together. And some of the best wins that I've had in my career have been when I've been in pitches with 10 to 12 people from my organization. I've got the trading guy, the data guy, the sportsbook guy, compliance. Everyone's represented, everyone's in that room, and everyone has a part to play. It's about having resources and an absolute commitment to provide a solution that's right for their requirements, right?
I want to pick up on, you mentioned persistence. And in a high profile deal, obviously persistence is you can just assume is going to be key, patience. But maybe even high profile or not, for any salesperson, and you just know that this is a day-to-day thing. How do you manage? And there's probably not a specific answer, but how do you manage being persistent and showing that you're there for the customer, but without being their manager getting a call saying, this person's called me 20 times, I don't want to deal with them anymore?
Well, look, I think it's a question of why are you reaching out to people, right? So I think, certainly the focus from my perspective is about adding value. So I think as an individual, if you can consistently show that you've got valuable topics to talk about, you've got interesting propositions, you've got maybe some insight into key markets. Operators love to hear this, right? They love to hear about new trends in new markets, or great ways to improve retention in one of their core markets that maybe perhaps they're struggling today. So I think this is where we go back to, from a sales perspective, the planning, right? So understanding who the target customer is, where is he, where's he focused, what markets, what size organization, what level of GGR, and actually understanding how we can help them. And if it's taking them into new markets through a scalable, highly compliant platform that has gamification features that ultimately is going to drive their retention levels greater than perhaps they're seeing in their core markets, then actually that's the message you've got to get across. And actually you work very closely with your in-house marketing function to kind of break those messages down into bite-sized chunks that you deliver to the customer on a regular basis, so you don't become that annoying guy on the phone, right? And actually become somebody that's consistently adding value to them. And actually at the same time, you're building up credibility for yourself and your business, right? And actually, when you work with larger organizations, there might not be an opportunity today, but there might be one in 6 months, in 1 year, in 2 years. So you have to play the long game. Yeah, the larger the organization, you play the long game. And if you're persistent over the long run in delivering credibility to the customer and showing that you're an expert and your company has compelling solutions, then eventually the phone rings, right? And they come to you, and that's ultimately what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. I want to talk about the industry a little more specifically now. I mean, the art of sales and the art of negotiation, historic, always there, might change over time. But specifically with gambling and the gaming industry, you've joined Software. I'm not sure if it's a specific inflection point in gaming history, but a lot has changed in the last. And I think it'd be good if we reflect on maybe the last sort of 10 years. Who knows where we'll be in 10 years? We'll get to that as well. But at the top level, what is the first thing that you might think 10 years ago this was very different?
Yeah, I think going back over the last decade, it's all been about engagement with players, right? It's gone of the days of walking into the bookie on the high street, placing your accumulator at 10 to 3 on a Saturday, and then walking out the door. And then in terms of your engagement with that brand, it was relatively low, right? Today, it's about keeping people on your app, keeping people engaged for a longer period, improving session lengths, and ultimately, what's happened over the last decade is the cost of acquisition has increased. Obviously, regulation has increased across many core markets. Both an opportunity, by the way. We've seen the US open up, and I was part of that gold rush back a few years back now. So new markets have come along. Core operators have expanded into new markets, focusing mainly on volume and transactions. And I think where we are today, over this period, what we're seeing is a convergence of product verticals merging into one. So casino, sportsbook coming together. We're seeing gamification playing a huge part in increasing the engagement with the player. And actually, I think as we move forward, it's about gambling operators transitioning into entertainment destinations. And you're seeing strong evidence in this in the value chain with M&A today. You're seeing it with some of the tie-ups between big media organizations and gaming businesses. So yeah, I think it's gone from very much transactional based into a much more converged entertainment-led engaging experience. And I think it's about now who has the most data on the player, who uses that most effectively, particularly with the emergence of AI now, the ability to deliver highly personalized engagement to players. Those operators are the ones that are going to win moving forward.
Yeah. You can definitely see as you say, the entertainment transition. You see it on the land-based side. So, for example, in Vegas, the MGM CEO told me a few years ago, even that before gaming revenues were 60-65%. Now they're probably closer to 30% because it's all about entertainment, sporting contests, and things like that. But in the online world, obviously, you mentioned convergence. We've seen quite a few lottery and casino deals recently as well, big high-profile mergers, and that sort of illustrates the point really in terms of with lottery, there's actually a lot of potentially untapped data there, and casino and lottery operators coming together, as you say, that you're building these big entertainment destinations ultimately.
Yeah, look, I think it's about ultimately creating a product for a player that ultimately drives lifetime value. Because, as I said, acquisition, gone are the days now, I think, of just focusing solely on player acquisition.
Yeah.
Acquisition costs are up. So I think now it's about making sure that you have a very, very strong gamification layer that can support players' journey through that multi-vertical experience. So, casino, sportsbook, you mentioned lottery, poker could be other verticals, social gaming, but actually giving them one destination for all of their gaming needs, really. And I think if you can do that and you can capture them and also keep them coming back, keep them on the site longer, keep them on the app longer, and we can, you can do that through. Well, we've got some SoftBet's got some great gamification solutions, and we can talk about that later. But certainly around missions and tournaments and leaderboards, and actually, this is what we are seeing people want, and ultimately, people want more engagement. They want brand affinity. They want to keep coming back, and you've got to give them a reason to come back, right? And I think that's what we focus on.
If you're to break it down by region, America, for example, North America, it's iGaming in the states that have legalized. You've seen some really strong iGaming numbers, but of course, the number of states hasn't quite opened up. But then you have, again, in Ontario, for example, you have a really strong market there.
Yeah, no, we love the Ontario market. I've been involved in that market for quite a number of years across a few organisations, so know it really, really well. We've got a strong brand there, TuneBet, which is doing well. And listen, it's about I think being successful in a new market, a new regulated market. What's the magic sauce? Well, I think it's about localization, right? It's about is the brand going to have affinity with the player base? I think that's number one, right? And then number two, making sure that the solution is right for that market. So lots of focus on taking a platform, taking all of its localization features, and actually making sure that the product delivers a compelling proposition for the local players. Right? I think, and if you can do that, you can be successful in any local market ultimately. So yeah, Ontario is a great market. There's obviously lots of new entrants, so it's a very highly competitive market. But listen, there's more Canadian opportunities in terms of new provinces opening up. We've got Alberta potentially opening up so soon now. Applications are open there, and there's potentially more in the future. So yeah, I think whilst the US has been slower than expected in terms of iGaming states opening up, the great thing about this industry is global, and there's new opportunities for regulation. And this is the plus side of regulation, the fact that the increased regulation in this industry is forcing the opening up of more markets. And that's a great opportunity for B2B turnkey providers like SoftBet. It's a great opportunity for ambitious operators who are looking to grow their revenues by expanding into these markets. And of course, those that can take the pain away of operational complexity and the technical challenges of their own roadmaps trying to go into new markets and actually partner with somebody like us to go into those new markets. It's they've got a clear path to success.
The localization point you mentioned earlier is certainly crucial, because in the US we saw a lot of brands come in, and the general consensus is that they tried to mimic a European sportsbook approach or European platform, and just slightly change it. And that didn't work because, as you say, you need to be truly local. And that concept applies to Latin America as well, because a fascinating area with loads of growth, but every little area is different, even to the point where they might play different games and that kind of thing. But what are your kind of hopes and reflection as well on how LATAM has grown, markets like Mexico and that kind of thing?
Yeah, look, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, whether it's Latin America, whether it's North America, ultimately these are all opportunities for the industry, whether it's the B2B supply chain or B2C operators, to grow their revenues through successful market entry. And listen, we're live today in Mexico with our Campo Bet brand. And it's a fully localized brand, as you mentioned, and it's the same principles that we've applied in Ontario or other markets across Europe, making sure that we don't rush into that market with a carbon copy of what was in a European market, because it doesn't work. We've seen many European operators, some very big names, spectacularly fail in the US, spectacularly fail in other continents, right? So I think the message here is caution, right? Not rushing headlong into a new market. Number two, it is about understanding that market, and you need to bring expertise in if you don't know it in-house, right? You can't be afraid to talk to the right people on the ground who understand what the player wants, because you have to start there, right? You have to start with what does the player want. You obviously do a deep dive of the competition in that market today, and then go away and build a solution that's right for that market. And I think for those organizations that have the resources to go and do that, and then effectively deploy a highly compliant, scalable iGaming sportsbook platform in that market, have got great opportunity of success. And ultimately, if your platform, technology stack, turnkey services, if they are successful, then other operators see that success, they see the numbers and say, hey, perhaps we need to move to these guys, right?
And if we were to talk about Europe and our reflection on the last 10 years and what may be to come, obviously a lot of regulation in some of the core markets. As you said, that can be an opportunity as well. Things have definitely changed in Europe, and I think there might not be necessarily that much surface level excitement at a show like ICE, for example, that all the excitement's in Latin America, but these are still very big and important markets.
Oh, look, you can't ignore them, of course. And listen, there's been a huge amount of change across Europe in the last decade. Some fundamental shifts in taxation we've seen in the UK of late, right? And that started a whole chain reaction within the industry of actually big, large organizations, operators that are, top tier in their home market, can't just be reliant on their own market, right? Because taxation can change and regulations
very
can
quickly
change
as well.
Very quickly, absolutely. I mean, advertising, we were seeing, many advertising restrictions, in many markets coming in, or payment restrictions. So they have to adapt fast, right? So I think right now, these operators are saying, okay, where else can we make up the revenue? How do we mitigate increased taxation, and how do we, get EBITDA back on track, right? So, and I think that's why, one of the reasons I've joined SofterBet at this juncture is that's the compelling opportunity. Right now, there's demand in the market for organizations like SofterBet, who have essentially a B2B provider, a platform provider with turnkey solutions that can offer operators, speed to market, with highly compliant technology, supported with operational prowess, in markets perhaps they're not in today, or perhaps even giving the ability to offer challenger brands in markets they are in today. So I think we're at the market at the right time. Operators are very keen, are very open to listening to ideas and ways to grow their revenues. And I think, going back to what we talked about, the sales approach, if we focus on being consultative, if we focus on being listening to the customer, understanding what they want, then I think all these challenging changes in regulation over the last 10 years in Europe actually can have a positive effect for a lot of businesses, right? But listen, it's going to keep changing. We assume further change across Europe and wider, but of course that's going to bring more new market opportunities, whether it's Latin America, whether it's, across the Asia, and other places as well.
Before we look ahead, because last 10 years, I wonder where we'll be in 10 years' time. But you talked about what SoftBet is kind of offering and looking at doing at the moment. And you discussed earlier, of course, watching from afar, admiring from afar. And I think that's a position a lot of people in the industry would have been, a lot of growth in these last few years. But looking at the here and now, and as you mentioned, ultimately you and your team will be selling these things. In terms of your goals and what you're looking to achieve and focus on with SoftBet, what is top of your priority list at the moment?
Well, look, it's we're not selling, right? We are
That's a very
solving.
blunt way of putting it.
we're solving operators' challenges, right? That's what we're about. We're about working closely in partnership with ambitious operators that want to grow their business internationally, globally. And we have a suite of technology and services that can help them do that, and we can help them do it fast. Whether it's through traditional turnkey models, whether it's through white label models to help them with speed to market with licensing, whatever it may be, we've got an array of solutions, and I think we, as I said, we approach it differently. We approach it as a consultative basis, and we target those organisations, those operators that we think are right for us. We want good partners that are going to fit well with our ecosystem and be good people to work with, and ultimately have a very sustainable, profitable partnership together.
In terms of the offering and working with partners, retention and engagement are going to be crucial, because we've talked about it a lot already. When I started in this industry, there was a lot of discussion on, the industry might be focusing a little bit too much on acquisition. Then a few years later, it was, they've improved a little bit on retention, but it's still probably too much on acquisition. Where do you think we are now? And also, how might you try to kind of influence this in a positive way in terms of that balance of, acquisition, but the long-term sustainable retention?
Well, listen, I think where we are today, I think there's still a huge focus on acquisition. It has to be, right? That's not changed. I think the smarter operators out there today are looking at how they can achieve lower CPAs, right? So it's not just about just affiliates, just PPC. It's about understanding, well, actually, can we utilize programmatic marketing, which often can deliver lower CPAs, for example. We see lots of sponsorship deals, brand ambassador deals right across the industry. Are they actually delivering acceptable CPAs? That's a big question mark, and it's a challenge for CMOs in operators to try and measure that, which is not easy, right? So I think, as I said, the smart operators are looking at ways of driving down the CPA, not so much scaling back marketing spend, but actually trying to get more for their money, essentially. But at the same time, the shift is all about retention now, right? So there's a number of fundamental ways that this is I see changing as we move forward. So the first one is with the emergence of AI, particularly within our industry, what you're starting to see now is fully automated CRM campaign solutions. So gone are the days of having big teams of CRM people seeing activity and then reacting with a planned campaign. Well, actually, in real-time data coming in and then using AI models to actually take that data and apply instantly campaign actions is actually seeing higher retention rates and, of course, ultimately improved lifetime values. And you actually take that across to operational efficiency, the increase of AI chatbots, for example, and all these other areas of way of reducing costs. Now, how does that help retention? Well, actually, by reducing your operational costs, you actually can invest more in your bonusing, more in your CRM, more in your retention campaigns, right? So actually, it all helps towards that bigger picture. And then, of course, the cherry on the top is the whole gamification layer now. That if you don't have, you are light years behind the industry now, because you have to have this. You have to be able to engage in a player and give them a reason to be on your brand, give them a reason to ignore that noise of all that acquisition. We just talked about how focused the industry is on acquisition. They're getting bombarded for bonus offers and deposit offers and new brand superstar, pushing a new betting brand. So how do you keep a player, to ignore that noise and actually stay loyal to you? Well, actually, he's coming back because he wants, He wants to continue the journey of new missions and new achievements and unlock rewards. And actually, if he goes on to another vertical, that benefits him on the leaderboard, and there's tournaments and engagement, and all these kind of things are now becoming the critical success factor of high performing operators. And, it's one of the reasons why I was, it was such an easy decision for me to come to SoftBet, because when I look at the suite of products, you've got this underlying very powerful platform, iGaming sportsbook platform that's scalable, compliant in many markets, over 19 licenses, I think, at the last count. But then on top of that, you've got this gamification layer, and it is exceptional. And I think the proof is when I look at the metrics, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the performance, because this is a numbers game, right? And the LTVs are strong, retention rates are strong, and it's being delivered through technology. And I think that's really exciting. So yeah, but lots of focus on AI gamification moving forward.
With that very forward-looking topic, I think you've officially kicked off our discussion on the future, maybe the next 10 years, but let's not say 10 to limit ourselves too much. I'll also put some disclaimers out there. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. We might know how likely the odds are being in this industry, but we don't have a crystal ball. But maybe that AI topic in general is a good place to start, because you already mentioned that some, if you have fully kind of automated AI CRM campaigns already today, some people say AI is going to change everything, people are going to lose their jobs. Others say, oh, we've seen what it can do. And again, this is not specific to this industry. It's made some really good, progress in this industry, but they see some. It's not quite as dramatic. I don't know what your view might be on that overall.
Look, I think this industry is already past the point of where if you're not using AI effectively in your business today, you're in trouble, really. Whether that's to improve operational efficiency, because we talked earlier about increased regulation, right? Yeah. And we talked about increased costs for operators in terms of, say, taxation, right? So their bottom line being hammered from taxation and increased regulation. You're seeing increased competition, new market entrants, margins are being eroded. So operators that are using AI to streamline their operations, to automate things, it's one of the only ways they can really try and reclaim back ground on their kind of EBITDA projections, right? So it's an absolute must, right? But I think for me, taking that to the player is where it becomes very exciting. Mm-hmm. So the operators that really understand the player from a data perspective, predicting what they're going to do next, predicting what that player journey is going to be, and then inserting into that gamification solutions to actually drive the player behavior in a way that they want, for me, is one of the most exciting thing of the next decade, really. So yeah, all about data leverage with AI to drive player behavior, which falls back to driving LTV and ARPU numbers. Yeah,
going off that answer, and given what you've seen in terms of change in the last 10 years, do you think the player experience 10 years from now is completely different?
Yeah, I think it's more, as I said, I talked about convergence earlier. I think it's all becoming one, isn't it? It's becoming, you've seen everything from, scores apps to all the various, the amount of content that players are consuming now. I think those operators that create a destination for the player, whether it's a sports-led brand, a sports-led entertainment center, whether it's an entertainment center for casino, whichever their path is, whichever their focus is, it's giving them more than just a gambling operator, right? So those are the operators that are going to win. And I think convergence requires, exceptional data skills, exceptional use of AI, and of course, market leading gamification to bring the whole thing together, to deliver back to the player journeys that are highly engaging, exciting, rewarding ultimately, and players that feel rewarded want to keep coming back.
And on that note, I think it's safe to assume that we can predict a fair bit more consolidation kind of from an industry perspective as we go on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've seen it. We talked about the US earlier. It's when markets get tough, of course, there's consolidation. And I think we're in a time now where there's going to be increased consolidation. not just UK, but certainly globally. I think, as I mentioned, there's the operators that are doing the right things. They're doing the right things with data, with AI, with market expansion, with outsourcing technology where it makes sense, and those that are not. And those that are not are seeing then, they're ultimately their profits under pressure, and this can't be sustainable. And I think, if I have one wish for this industry the next kind of 10 years, it's about, become more sustainable, give it longevity. You're seeing some very historic brands in real trouble, and that's not nice to see. Some of these brands have been around a long time, and I really hope that that more operators embrace what's coming, embrace the technology, and can actually, stay ahead of the pack.
Yeah, exciting times ahead. But as you've just mentioned there, I don't think the pressure on anyone is going to be any lower. And I think those who, and we kind of talked about pressure and focus earlier as well, those who respond to that will, as you say, potentially be the winners in this next few years.
Absolutely. Listen, it's those that make bold decisions, that accept the situation that they're in, accept that they need to look for other revenue streams, other channels, other markets, and are not afraid to make bold decisions and get moving. Right, it's speed to market. Many operators are doing it right now. So, fortune favours the brave somewhat. So it'd be interesting to see, certainly in the next few years, particularly with the emergence of regulated markets in Latin America, more Canadian provinces opening up. Potentially, there's talk of Asian markets opening up in the next few years. It's going to be really interesting to see where some of these heritage brands really take their business moving forward.
Absolutely. You said fortune favours the brave, but as some others might say, to dare is to do as well.
Less said about that, the better. I can't say a long-suffering Spurs fan, because I had the privilege of taking my 10-year-old son to Bilbao last year and watching us lift the Europa League Cup. So listen, but yeah, I think it's not about daring or necessarily being bold. It's calculated. It's planned, right? We go back to planning at the beginning. It's about, okay, well, let's look at international expansion. Which markets do we look at? And that's where we come in from a consultative perspective. Say, well, actually, here are the markets available. Here's where we can help you with licensing. Here's where we can give you full turnkey. Here's typical retention rates. Here's typical CPA rates. And we work with those operators. We put together robust business plans that both parties stand behind, and then we get moving. We build it, we launch it, we operate it. The partner brings acquisition to the table, gets to utilize the heritage of their brand or whatever brand partnership they have, and ultimately both parties should see sustainable profitability in the long run. And I think, as long as we certainly continue to have that approach, I think we will continue to be successful, and I'll hopefully continue to drive B2B growth at SoftAbet.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, best of luck in the role. Thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure I'll catch up with you again soon.
Lovely. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.